So we don't have a guest of honor today. Our guest of honor happened to cancel last minute. So trying to scurry and scrounge somebody. So if anyone on here does want to be on live dials ever, just send me a message. Or if you want to, it's hard. Like, so many people love watching these. I think to be the guest of honor for some is also terrifying. They don't, a lot of people don't want to be in the spotlight, right? So they're, or admit that they need the help, right? So it's definitely, it can be tricky. Or the ones that I've got them on the list, and every time I go through them, they're never available. So it's tricky. So yeah. So today I suggested, and there's always some, as you said, there's always something to talk about, right? So does anyone in here that's currently hosting? We have Galina, Senji, and Veda in here. Do any of you have any questions that either Beverly or myself can help you with when it comes to the leads in your database? Any instances or situations that you've encountered, whether it be just in a conversation with a lead, or perhaps just with your system and how to do something?
Yes, they can pop in the chat or the Q&A.
Yeah.
So while we're waiting, I'm just going to talk.
There you go.
This is the time of year that we aren't traditionally as busy.
Mm-hmm.
This is when we start taking a hard look at what worked this year. What do we want to take into next year? What do we want to eliminate from? What do we want to keep in 2021 and don't want to take it to 2022, basically? And it's very easy to look back and look at what didn't happen over the year. But I just want to encourage the questions that we ask ourselves when we're going through that process. Have you squeezed all the juice out of the lemon before you make those decisions to keep or get rid of something? Because as we're moving forward with our goals for 2022, what did work this year? What didn't work this year? And if it didn't work, why didn't it work? Was it the application? Was it the systems? Was it the quality? Was it, I was just going through this with a client yesterday, and we were adjusting where his leads were coming from, because we were looking at his cost per lead. We were looking at the location the leads were coming from, and being able to say, okay, well, this one isn't performing as well as this one, and we can cut your budget on this one and move these leads over here and allocate here. There's always ways to make something better, but it really comes down to, you have to know what it is that you need to make better. And if we're not working our leads and we're not paying attention to our leads, everything else is just assumption. So for nothing else, other than, yes, we want to convert, but I look at working our leads as really getting to know our market, really getting to know what people are looking for in the marketplace to be able to make those determinations. And I'm even going through it with myself. I have certain locations that I heavily focused my lead volume on, and some of those areas weren't performing at the level of other areas. So I pulled back on some areas and moved into other areas. We just have to be very aware and pay attention.
It can be, and sometimes it really comes down to an area just being over targeted, right? So it's performing quite well, and then you start to notice it's starting to taper off. Sometimes the ad itself can be tweaked to help boost its performance again, but sometimes that's telling you that you've now got a ton of competition all targeting that same area. So naturally, Google's cost per click is going to go up with that. Kind of like how and I don't know if they do this the same in the States. We have postal walks in Canada. So when you're doing unaddressed ad mail, you pick the postal walks that you would want Canada Post to drop those marketing materials to. Certain areas, it costs you more to drop those materials in because they're highly targeted areas. So Canada Post is like, hey, we can make more money off this area because everyone wants to target it. So we're going to do that. It also kind of helps, for those people there. Some people who are advertising might not target as frequent to that area because it costs them more to target that specific area. So those people that live there aren't going to always get over inundated with marketing materials.
Yeah. And it's really knowing your market. My favorite markets are the markets that are outside of the metro, the ones that aren't as heavily targeted and marketed because it is a lower price point. Those are genuinely easier leads to convert, and you're going to get more leads at a lower dollar volume. But you really do have to know your market. And the conversation I was having with my agents yesterday was, where are we seeing what's going on with the market? Well, we have a dynamic area that everybody wants to be in, but they can't afford that area, so they always end up over in a different area. So one would think, I want to advertise in the area that everybody wants to be in. No, I'm sorry. You would think that you would want to advertise in the area that people are ending up in because of the price. But you're going to be missing the opportunity because people are looking over here. So you have to be able to capture them, educate them, give them that value proposition of, okay, you're really looking for a unicorn in a pet shop here, because the majority of those leads are going to be frustrated because they're not able to find what they're looking for. And that's where you can really rise up above and shine, because you can have a conversation with them that most agents are afraid to have. Most agents are afraid to say, that property does not exist where you're looking. What's more important to you, price or location? Because if you're able to adapt to a different location, we're going to be able to make that happen for you. But if not, we're going to have to increase your price point. So that way you can have those conversations. So really know where you want to be spending your marketing dollars, because sometimes it's worth paying a higher dollar per lead to capture the lead, to get them where you want them to go. And even when I was in the DC market, I was an hour and a half out the last community that was commutable to DC. So nobody was the people that were moving into Northern Virginia wanted to live where they were going to be working. So that's where everyone was predominantly looking. So I was looking at $28 a lead versus in my area, $8 a lead. Well, I would rather get two $28 leads than four $8 leads because of quality. So you can't talk to somebody. So please don't ever go into the agent locator. How much are you paying for leads? How much is your lead? Because it's a shit show. I mean, you're never going to get the same number. And it's like the lottery. It changes all the time too. Just know your specific market and exactly what to market in that's going to benefit you the most for where you want to sell. So it looks like Sanji, she's new to agent locator. She has a buyer lead that's not responding to calls. Dang, leads. Why do they do that? Sanji, I want to encourage you to not focus on the one, because we have and are continuing to generate leads. So when we've created call filters within your system, they were created for this defined purpose. Because when I first started calling leads, I would look at the notes and try to talk myself out of why I shouldn't be calling them, because, I knew better, because my stories that I had in my head was more the reality than the actual reality, if you know what I'm talking about. So when I would look at that one lead and go, oh my God, he's looked at 500 properties. He's in here every freaking day and he's not answering the phone. That was so much exhausting energy that I was spending more time thinking about that one person that's not answering the phone than going through my 15 phone calls. So the law is in the numbers, and you can't look at one specific lead, one specific person, one specific situation. You have to look at the leads in the groups. What's that?
It'll drive you nuts.
It will, absolutely. And all the stories you create about each person. Because we do it. We absolutely do it. We have a story for every person. Well, that person's not calling me back because blah, 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 blah. And this guy, I went and showed him a property and he's not calling me back because he bought with another agent. And this one, I'm not even going to call him back because I've already called him 5 times. He hasn't answered the phone anyway. So I'll just skip him.
Mm-hmm.
So we have our own self-dialogue while we're in the database. Just freaking do it. Just freaking do it. So when I look at my leads, when I'm dialing them, my tried to contact is my favorite stage to call through because I've never had a conversation with them. And to your point, there's 3 forms of communication: text, phone, email. And we really want to determine what's going to be their favored form of communication and communicate with them like that if we can get them to raise their hand. So we have to think about, if they're not answering the phone, what kind of message do we want to send based on the outcome we're looking for? Because in my experience, it's easier to get a lead to respond to really quick yes, no questions via text. Yes, on the phone, you want to ask those open-ended questions that are going to lead them to a conversation and not yes or no. However, via text, if you ask those questions, you're not going to get the response because it takes too long to type. So when we're texting and or emailing, you want them to just raise their hand. Even if they tell you to F off, you want them to just raise their hand so that you know what to do with them and how to move forward. So I would challenge you with your questions in order to get them to respond. Look at how long they've been in the system. You've been looking at some great houses. When were you thinking about actually scheduling a tour to see a home? Something like that. Quick, sweet, to the point. You're looking at some great homes. When would you want to schedule to see something? So just be very matter of the fact.
Now, Sanjay, how do you know that they have $1 million house to sell? Was this a seller lead, or did you have a previous conversation with them?
And on that, I will answer Vedas. How do you respond to a lead who says they are just looking? How do you overcome that objection? Are we able to bring Veda? Veda, would you be able to come on and talk with us?
It's actually Sabrina, but yes, I can allow her to talk. Just give me one moment here. There we go. I've allowed you to talk. So Sabrina, if you want to turn your audio on, you can.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Have you heard any of my previous webinars?
I'm sorry, I haven't. This is my first time joining you beautiful ladies, so I haven't had a chance.
Okay, and it's Sabrina, right? You're just
yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Sabrina, I'm gonna ask you this question. When you walk into a retail store and a salesperson says to you, is there anything I can help you with today? What do you say?
Just looking.
Aha.
I do the same, so I'm guilty of that for sure.
Yes, right. And we get mad at our leads for doing exactly that. So now let me ask you, great, you're just looking. Sabrina, if you were to buy something today, would it be business, casual, or special occasion?
Okay, so I would answer that obviously at business, I guess.
Business, what do you do?
I'm a real estate assistant.
Ooh, that's fun. So do you work from home? Do you work in the office?
I work from the office.
You work from the office. So what's your normal dress attire? What do you normally wear when you go to work?
Professional.
Professional. So slacks, dresses, skirts.
Yeah, slacks and a jacket, or a skirt and a jacket or something.
We have a sales rack back in the back with some of the slacks and dresses. If you have any questions, Sabrina, just give me a holler. My name's Beverly, and I would be happy to help you.
Awesome. I like that because you're doing fact-finding questions, right?
Yeah, now I know what you're looking for, right? Now I know what your intention is. And if you're overlooking at the pajamas, I'm going to call bullshit on it, right?
Yeah, of course. Definitely. Okay.
So everybody is predominantly just looking. It's like all these buyer leads got the memo to say, I'm just looking, or I have an agent, right? Because they don't want to
get you off the phone.
Which is why we say, no, thank you, right? No, just leave me alone. Just let me look, because we don't want them to sell to us. Just let me look in peace. And that's all these leads want. They just want to look online without being bothered. So it's our job to take that defensive wall down and ask a couple of questions about, oh, that's great, you're just looking. So what's your situation right now? Do you own? Do you rent?
Okay, thank you so much. That was very good.
Just keep the conversation going is ultimately what you have to do. Don't let the I'm just looking and the conversation
cut. Yeah, of course.
Really practice being a great question asker, because he who asks the questions controls the conversation.
The answers. Yeah.
And that way we're able to find out, hypothetically, if you were to make a move in the future, what's that look like?
Yeah.
Year, 2 years, 5 years.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Beverly. That was great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
We did get an answer from Sanji here. They are downsizing, so they responded to an email. So we know that they're downsizing. You
got a hand raise. So what was their response in that email when they said they were downsizing? Because when we think about, just like we were talking with Sabrina, there's certain things that we have to know to be able to decide, like, where are we going to fit into their life that they're going to need a real estate agent. Because if they really are in the beginning stages, they don't need us yet. And they don't feel that it's really worth the time to have a conversation with you so prematurely, and they don't want to waste your time. Most people don't wake up and say, I'm going to be so rude to the person that tries to call me today. It's just instinctual, just like Sabrina says, no, I'm fine. Like, I don't need any help. Thank you. It's just that wall that goes up that says, protect me, because I don't want to be sold to. I've already bought a ton of shit today. I was shopping on Amazon all morning, right? So it is really, okay, so you're downsizing. My next question is, when would you like to be in a new home? Do you have a time frame? Because it might be 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So, they may be downsizing, but they may have a child in university that's not going to be graduating for 3 years. And they may just want to wait, so we don't know what their situation is. And people are more apt to ask quick questions via email, via text. So in something like that, if they responded via email, I would attempt the email. I like to respect the communication that they respond with, because that's generally their favored form of communication. So what you could do, if they responded via email, leave them a voicemail. So when you do call, say, hey, I got your email. I know that your plans are to downsize. Just wondering when that time frame is. No need to call back. Just trying to check in with you. I'll follow up with you in another few weeks. And then that way you're creating a pattern, and you're creating also an expectation that, oh, they're going to call me back. So if you say that enough times on a voicemail, then eventually they're probably going to pick up the phone, because they know that you're pretty serious. And the most beautiful thing about that consistency is the fact that they know you're always going to be there. And they appreciate the consistency when what you're really truly doing is you're interviewing to earn their business. Because you keep showing up, you keep showing up, you keep showing up. And they know that if they commit to you as their realtor, you're going to do the job, because you were doing the job before they even hired you.
You can also, Sanji, not sure, they have a house to sell, is with your system, is to send them sold listings based on that current home they have, add another piece of value to that component. So they can watch and see what the homes are actually selling for in their neighborhoods, giving them a better opportunity and understand what their home may potentially go for in the current market. So that's something that you might be able to use to generate a response. Another response from that person is that added feature, an opportunity for them to receive such information from you.
So if you don't know where they live, ask them, just send them a quick email and say, hey, just wonder what area your home is in so I could keep you updated with the most recent sales in the market that are happening there. And it is, you don't want to be intrusive. It's like every couple of week check-in.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to be a stalker. One of my training clients, he actually had a lead tell him, you have way too much time on your hands. Because he literally stalked her on Facebook, and he's like, oh, I see that you do so-and-so. And she's like, oh my God. And he lost the deal, and he saw that she listed with another agent. And I'm like, dude, there's some stuff you just keep to yourself.
Yeah. You don't let people know you're stalking them and searching them on Facebook. That's almost that's borderline creepy. I think I'd be turned off of anyone that's trying to sell me on anything if they started bringing up some of my stuff online. I'd be like, whoa, this is a little much.
Well, now, but for him, if someone did that to him, it would work.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the love languages. If you ever read Gary Chapman's book, the 5 love languages, right? We tend to do how we like to receive. And the same goes for sales. We sell the way that we like to be sold to. Well, that's not going to sell to everybody because everybody is so different.
Mm-hmm.
So you really have to pay such close attention to the conversation on the other side, because it's so important to hear what they're saying, to be able to, and we've all heard it, we're in sales, you match and you mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And by asking the questions, you're just peeling back the layers to be able to get to provide that solution, or not, if they're, looking for that champagne taste with the beer budget.
Mm-hmm.
How much is too much? How many attempts before you stop? Sabrina, I love this question. One of my favorite stories, and I know Crystal's heard this, we had a lead that came into our system in May, and this was years ago. He came in May. My agent called me in November, and she's like, Bev, so-and-so called me back, or this lead called me back. And I said, that happens once in a while. And she goes, you don't understand. She says, we've called him X amount of times. So our rhythm is, when we have leads coming to the dashboard, obviously the new leads are the highest priority, except for what's in your pipeline and your tasks, right? So you have a lead that comes in, they're new, you make that first call attempt. 6 to 8 call attempts within the first 14 days. After 14 days, it's once a week. As long as they're maintaining activity with the emails that are going out and they're opening and they're engaging, they're going to get a call once a week until they answer the phone. So have them on an email drip, have them on a text drip, keep that automated, but you are proactively making those phone calls. Now, if they go inactive, they're not going to get the calls because they're going to fall out of the call bucket and they're not as high of a priority because they're not looking. So this particular gentleman, we dialed 78 times. We left 2 messages in the course of May to November. When he called her, he left a voicemail and he said, I feel like I owe you this phone call because you've been trying to call me a lot. We were just out in the area driving around. We're not going to be in the market until the spring, more like the April timeframe. We do have a home to sell up in the Washington, D.C. area. We're going to list with an agent that is local to that area. But we absolutely want you to be our realtor here, because as much as you've tried calling us, we know that once you meet us, how hard you're going to work for us. They set a lunch appointment for the next week in November. She met with them in March. They had their home on the market. Our market was a $250,000 market and it was a $400,000 cash sale. You attempt until they buy or they die. And the exact same way with our nurturing and our following up as we're building that pipeline. Our main objective is to have the conversation, find out where they are in the process and keep them. So if I've never spoke to you, you're going to get those weekly attempts via phone call at different times of the day, mind you, because you don't ever want to always sit down and call people at the same times because people have habits. So you want to increase your conversations, you want to be calling at different times, you know, week to week. And then even your 6 to 8 attempts in those first 14 days, keep it to the morning, early afternoon, late morning, early evening, just so you're changing up the time that you are calling them and that potential attempt of them to answering the phone when it's a little bit more convenient, especially since they see the phone number coming up so often. I'm also going to strongly encourage, because third-party dialers, DNC calls, and the wonderful trademark is really preventing our job from getting any easier. And because a lot of calls, I noticed it on mine, spam call, spam risk, right? So third-party dialers, it's not agent locator's fault. It's not third-party dialers, it's not Twilio's fault. It is the law. So when those numbers are coming up, be sure to, I am going to say, attempt with your phone as well, just to ensure that engagement. Because if it keeps coming up as spam over and over again, it's way easy to block that number. And then you're never going to get through. How do you know if they blocked your number? It will just ring and ring and ring and ring and ring, and it won't ever go to a voicemail.
Or it just doesn't even ring.
Or it
went from ringing, and then all of a sudden, every time you call, it just straight to voicemail or straight to like nothing. Like it just disconnects.
But
if you know if you can send a text and it delivers and that happens, your number's probably been blocked.
Yeah. So it's all these myriad of ways. And I was just talking to my agent yesterday that she's also my ISA, and we were talking about, we may very well have to go back to the manual dials because the spam calls are, it's just, we have noticed that fewer and fewer people are answering the phone today. Now, it is because of technology and we're just too accessible, and our phone ringing is now just white noise and it's easier to swipe it down. And we know half the time the phone rings, it's not important. And we really don't want to have a conversation that we're not in the mood to have. So it is really going back to basics and saying, okay, if we're not having luck with people picking up the phone, and we're not having enough conversations, and we were literally having this conversation yesterday, because on a dialer, you can get through, especially an agent locator, you can pull your list and you can just, you have your list at the top and you just click the phone. I dial through the computer. You click the phone, the screen pops up, you hit the dial button, let it ring 23 seconds, close it, move to the next. You literally have less than a 10-second hang time from lead to lead. So depending on how many people are answering the phone, if you have 50 people in the queue, you can legit get through that list in less than 30 minutes. I promise you. You want to follow the 23-second rule. Now, if they are leads that have not been called for a very long time, or they've never been called, you're not going to get through that list of 50. It's going to take you well over an hour, because you are going to have people picking up. You are going to have bad phone numbers that you're going to be filing and moving the people and getting rid of them. But then the next time you go to activate that same list, it's going to be much quicker. But the first time you sit down and make the calls, if they haven't been called, you are going to get a lot more connections. So just be very aware. And like I told Missy, I said, I would much rather, if I'm sitting down making hundreds of calls, and let's say I have 100 calls, I'm only having 10 connections of conversations. I would rather make 25 calls and have 15 conversations than 100 dials and only having 10, if that makes any sense. So you really have to test your own system, but I beg you, and I cannot stress the importance of this enough. If you do a manual dial, log it as a call in the system, because that is what moves everything through our filters to be able to determine when you made those phone calls, to be able to track how many phone calls does it take to convert. Because when you're tracking and you're looking at exactly what you're doing, you're able to set your future goals based off of, out of this many leads, I converted this. Out of this many phone calls, I had this many conversations. Out of this many conversations, I had this many conversions. And the only way to track that is to keep your database exactly up to date with everything that you're doing, even if you're not doing it through the system.
You have to know when you last called them or tried to, so you know when to do it again. So those who don't log everything, you're the ones that are more likely to fail.
Yeah,
When I go into it and they're like, oh, these leads or whatever, and I jump in there, it's like, you're not logging anything. How can you even say that they're garbage? You don't even know how many times you tried to call a certain person or when you last tried to call them. So it's like, based on what I'm saying, you've got amazing leads in here. Like almost all of their emails are valid. The phone numbers, you turned off your dialer in the Twilio, so we don't know. So it's trust the system as well. So I find that those who go in and start to try to reinvent things, it's not broken, right? So there's no reason to go around and reinvent and do this and do that. Use the system, use it to your advantage. Log. That's why we always stress on all that is that's where you're going to have success, is when you're logging and you can track your activities. So you know when you last did it, so you know when to do it again.
And stop telling yourself the stories. You know, I caught myself the other day and it was so comical because I was really trying to drive a point. And the point was driven very well. We were talking about door knocking and the fear of door knocking, and how I was the one that said, I will never door knock. All my coaching clients, I'm like, you don't have to door knock. You don't have to door knock. Like, just don't do it, right? Because that's my fear. So as I'm telling the story of why I won't door knock, I now do. But when I was telling the story of why I don't door knock, I had a 4-year-old that did not sleep all night until I had a baby when she was 4. She started sleeping all night and then I had a baby. So I never got a good night's sleep. When she was at school and my baby was napping, that was like my Zen time. I had 2 dogs, stay-at-home mom. When would the doorbell ring? As soon as I put the baby down for the nap, the dogs bark and I lose my Zen time. It happened so much that I disconnected my doorbell. So every time my son went down for a nap, my doorbell rang. Really? Every time? No. But the one time that it happened, it was so traumatic to me because it was such a huge inconvenience that my brain says every time I put him down for a nap, somebody's going to ring the doorbell. How could I possibly go and ring doorbells and inconvenience somebody to that effect? Because I don't want to do that to somebody else. My story that happened every single time. So when we get into our dashboard and we hit a couple of bad phone numbers, we disconnect the doorbell. Every freaking lead has a bad phone number because it's just as traumatic. Because how much money are you spending for Agent Locator? How much money are you spending for potential? You're spending money and you can see the leads that are coming in. So you're literally exchanging money for something tangible. So if we don't call them, we can literally get high on the opportunity of knowing there's potential. If I sit down and call my leads and have conversations, I'm going to convert. But then when you sit down and you get a couple of bad phone numbers and you get a couple of people that hang up on you and you get a whatever, it's not meeting your expectations, we disconnect the doorbell. Every lead sucks. None of these leads are good. And we completely create our story so that we don't ever go door knock because we've disconnected the doorbell. That is the only thing that is preventing you from increasing a conversion rate, is the story that you're telling yourself and not having the proper systems. because of exactly the first question that came in. I have that one lead that's not responding. So we automatically take that one lead and we create that story that all these leads aren't communicating with me. All these leads aren't calling me back. All these leads aren't answering the phone. Is there truth to it? Absolutely. But we have to really catch ourselves in the words that we voice out loud to say every lead's a bad phone number. How often do you hear that whenever people call you, Crystal, and they say, oh my God, every lead in my database is a bad phone number?
Oh God, all the time. All the time. I'll get it from Sunny's like, hey, can you take a look? And I take a look and I'll do the percent. I'm like, we got 92% valid phone numbers here. What are they talking about? Like, they'll look at, so I find and not even in leads but life in general, we tend to dwell on the things we don't have or things we can't do, rather than focusing and leveraging on what we do have. I was like, oh man, all these are garbage, but look at all these ones over here that are not garbage. Like, these are all amazing people. You're just choosing to focus on what's going wrong rather than what's going right.
Well, and that's why I interjected that it's way more exciting to think about the opportunity of all the leads that are in there than to really sit down and take action. And those of you that have been following me for a while will always hear me say, and have heard me say, stop being attached to the outcome and start to enjoy the process. Because the only thing, when we say, oh my God, we had such a bad day, my fiance does it. I'm like, why was it bad?
It was like one thing
bad about it. Well, it's not just it was one thing. It didn't meet his expectation, right?
Yeah.
So the only reason something is bad is because it did not meet our expectations the way that we thought it should be, the way that we wanted it to be. So therefore it's bad. Well, if you don't have an expectation and it just is, every conversation, you never know what's going to happen with a conversation ever. And I'm going to follow that with a story of a lead that I had come in. I asked her, I said, did you want to see this? Now I did call her. I said, did you want to see this house? And she said, no, I was actually looking at what they were selling for because I already put a contract on a home in this neighborhood. Well, she basically said she has an agent. She's being represented, right? So I asked her, I said, did you find what you were looking for? And she goes, no, not really, because this one's on the market. And I said, well, do you know what they're selling for? She says, I don't. Well, I had pulled it up because I multitask, right? Like while I'm making the phone call, I'm pulling the property, and I'd already pulled the subdivision. So I had it right in front of me. The property was listed at $339,000. I'm sorry for you, those of you that are in like the $1 million market there in Canada. I know I'm in like po man land here. So 339,000. And I said, so you were looking to see what they were selling for. Can I just ask like what you wrote the contract at? She said 400,000. And I said, so what exactly were you looking for? Like, what were you hoping to see? She goes, well, I was just looking to see what they sold for last. And I said, do you really want me to tell you that? And she says, yeah. And I said, the last one just sold for 349. There hasn't been a sale in that neighborhood over 349. She goes, so is 400 overpaying? I said, I can't tell you that. I said, but what kind of financing you're doing? She's a conventional, we're putting 20% down. I said, well, do you have an appraisal contingency? And she said, what do you mean? And I'm like, oh God, this isn't going well, right? I could have ended that conversation and said, sorry, see you later. What chance? So for those of you that are still on here, what chance do I have at converting this lead?
None. At that point, that's what you would normally tell other and call whatever. This is already said and done. Might as well hang up the call now.
Exactly. But I like to help people, right? She was looking for help. She was genuinely online looking for help. So I explained to her what the appraisal contingency meant. And she said, well, my husband signed the contract and I don't know what he signed. I said, do me a favor, pull up the contract while we're on the phone and just see if there's an appraisal contingency in there. And she says, I can't find it. Can I send you the contract? Sure. She emailed it to me. And I said, all right, I'm going to ask you this question. You wrote this contract for $400,000. She told me, she goes, I don't want to lose this house. I love this house. And I told my agent, I don't want to lose this house. I want to write the contract at what I have to do to get the house. Great, but your job as an advisor, your fiduciary duty is to educate them. Give them enough information for them to make the decision for themselves, not to just say, do this without any reason. So I explained to her the appraisal, if it comes in at 350, that's what your loan amount's going to be set at. Do you love the house enough to come to the table with an extra $50,000? She's like, oh my God, no. I said, well, that's the scenario you have right now. She's like, oh my God, what do I do? I said, I can't help you because you do have an agent, but if you were my mother, I would pull the offer because it was up against multiple offers. All the offers were due and they still had the rest of that day. So this was Saturday morning and then all the offers were due by Saturday night. I said, I would pull the offer or revise it. So after I explained to her, after I gave her all the information to make an educated decision, because at the end of the day, what we should be doing for our clients is asking them, based on all the information I gave you, and based on the offer that you're making, if I come back and tell you they chose another offer, do you feel that you've done everything that you could to be able to say, I did the best I could? I was not willing to pay any more for this home. I was not willing to do anything else to win the offer. So I gave her the information, 20-minute conversation. I set a reminder to call her back the next day. I normally would never have done that. See you later, bye. But there was just something about our conversation. I really liked her. So I called her back the next day and I said, Huda, just wondering, how did that go? She says, they didn't take our offer. I said, oh my gosh. I said, just out of curiosity, do I possibly have the opportunity to earn your business now? I was on speaker, didn't know it. Looking for my charger. I didn't know I was on speaker and her husband says, yes, absolutely. I'm tired of my wife always finding the properties to give to the agent. My wife's doing all the work and the agent's just writing the contracts. I said, okay, great. Kimberly is my agent. We're going to be sending you over some properties. We got them emailed over to her. It was like 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening. We didn't hear back from her. Stories in our head, right? Kimberly, she said, she probably just went with somebody else. And she's, she's working with that agent, blah, blah, blah. Stories in our head. I called her back. I said, Huda, we didn't hear from you. What's going on? And this is what you've got to realize. People are loyal for a lot of the wrong reasons. Because she said to me, now after the agent just basically screwed her and told her you have to write this contract at $400,000, you know damn well they would have taken her offer. $400,000, no appraisal contingency, no financing contingency to boot. It's basically like a cash offer. $70,000 over list, they don't want. So the agent already put them out to dry and she knew it. She said, well, she showed us this other property and I think we're going to put a contract on it. I said, okay, Huda, best of luck to you. No problem. Good luck to you. She called me back the next day. Beverly, are you still available for us to hire you to be our agent? What? Of course. What happened? Well, my daughter didn't like the house and I told the agent I didn't want to put the contract on it. So she told me she couldn't work with us anymore because we couldn't make up our minds and we didn't know what we wanted. It wasn't the value that I was giving her that created the loyalty. It was the fact that she even said out loud to me, well, I don't feel bad leaving her now because she basically fired me. She was still willing to use that agent even when that agent screwed it up. Because it's more uncomfortable to have an uncomfortable conversation to fire somebody than it is to get really good service. So kind of put that one in your sock and walk on it, right? It literally hurts my head. That was a townhouse. They were both townhomes. We were able to get them into a single family home that they never in a million years thought they would be able to ever obtain. And we won out of 15 offers. Because we educated them, we helped them through the process, and they knew exactly what they were writing. And they did not overpay. We basically gave the seller like everything. We're like, keep everything in the house that you don't want, leave your trash, leave your whatever, just leave the house the way you want it. And it made it super simple for the sellers. But I say this because no conversation will ever be a waste of time, because you never know how you are going to affect somebody. And even if she wouldn't have come back and utilized our services and we would have gotten that closing, she would never forget us. And I promise she would refer us before she would have referred the other agent. So that is falling in love with the process and not being attached to an outcome. I have such a service heart that when I was calling leads in my little old town of 48,000 people, it wasn't enough for me. So I started calling other people's leads. And then that led to me training other people to call their leads, to be able to have conversations. Because I'm going to tell you this, there are a crap ton of real estate agents out there. Or should I say there are a crap ton of people out there that hold a real estate license. But I can promise you, very few of those people that hold a license know how to properly inform the seller of how to position their home to make the most amount of money, and to inform the buyer of how to save the most amount of money. Because we truly need to look at our position as advising and not just doing. Because these people just don't know. They get caught up in the, they get caught up in the multiple offers. Well, okay, you're caught up in a multiple offer. What if you overpay for this house? Do you have the funds if the HVAC breaks to replace the HVAC? Do you have the funds to replace something that may cost $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 after you buy the house? If you do, great. But my job is to bring everything to attention so that you can make a very educated decision on anything that you're doing moving forward. So when I'm calling leads, I don't care if they're not answering the phone. I don't care if they're not responding. I'm looking for the ones that are, because I know that when I sit down, somebody needs to have a conversation with me. And whoever that's going to be, I just let the universe decide who's going to answer the phone. And I get a lot of the times, I can't believe I answered my phone. I never answer my phone. I'm not selling anything. I just want to help you in your process. So yes, I convert a lot of leads that have agents. I do. But you got to look at that level of how serious are they with the agent that they say that they have. Because it's a sad day whenever you ask the question, I just have to sleep at night. And I know like there's so many people out there. It's 2021, everybody has a real estate license. I just want to know for 100% sure that you completely trust the person that you are working with to position you to win an offer and educate you, as well as to protect your future investment. Do you 100% trust the person you're working with? You will be appalled at how many people say, no, I thought I did. So have fun with calling the leads and find out where they are in the process and where you can fit in, and don't be attached to the outcome. Don't get stuck on one, just go through the process and call.
I just call it like a cocktail party where you're there just mingling with all these people and they all just happen to be looking at listings. It's really just establishing the beginning of a relationship with all these people, right? It takes the pressure off yourself when you're calling as well. You're not going to be so caught up in the results of that call, and usually we're looking at timelines and things like that. Oh, they're just looking. Whereas if you just jump in and have a good conversation, you walk away from that conversation feeling great, even if they're not moving for 2 years.
Yeah, because you can have community conversations. Someone may be new to the area and they may not know the best coffee shop, or they may not know the best steak place. It's like you never know what footprint you're going to leave on somebody. And it's, when you have a mission to make people smile, I even try to help the people that hang up on me smile. And I don't trash anybody. If they hang up on you, keep calling.
Yeah, it's hard. It can be hard to not take it personal, but you got to do your best to not make it personal. Like it's sometimes you're just catching them at the wrong time. And they don't owe anything to you to be courteous. They don't even know who you are. Right. So you could have caught them while they're juggling a baby and groceries in their hand. They're the last person they want to talk to right now. Like they don't have time for this. So we never know what's happening on the other end as to why they hung up on us. Right. So don't jump
that's
to your
why
conclusion.
my 23-second rule, because if you think about your phone ringing, 23 seconds is approximately 4 rings. And if you think about your cell phone ringing and they don't get to it by the 4th ring, you're probably not going to have a great conversation anyway. And it really does create more callbacks because they're curious because they just missed the call of who it was. So It can be a lot of fun calling leads, but we have to get over the voice in our head. And that's all there is to it. I've been calling leads for a long time. And still when I sit down, I'm like, okay, let's get this party started. Let's go. But it is.
Who am I going to get?
It takes you a few calls to get into the groove again. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Does anyone have any last minute questions before we go here? We got a few minutes left. Now there was some that joined us a little bit later on. I'm not sure if you guys are encountering anything with your leads or system.
Yeah, this time right now, I've noticed with our leads that there is that the conversion piece isn't there right now. Like the last month has been a little bit slow. We're building the pipeline, but the conversion hasn't been as great as it was. Well, I just started leads in July. So July, August, September, we were burning and churning, but now it's been a little bit slower. So it's just, it's seasonal. You have a lot of people looking right now for the spring market. And that's where your systems are so vitally important, because what you're doing today is where you're going to be in 45 to 60 days. So if you're not happy with where you are right now today, look back at what you were doing 45, 60 days ago. And that will be your indicator as to why you're not busy right now.
Perfect. Well, I don't see any additional questions coming in. What is our next scheduled live dial date?
2 weeks.
15th. All righty.
The date.
Sorry?
What's the date?
That is the 15th. Halfway through the month. I can't believe it.
I know.
I'm panicking over here. I'm not ready for the holidays. Time goes too fast. But you know what's really bizarre? It's 17 degrees outside where I am right now. And like, it's
Ooh.
really odd. Like I walked outdoors to take my kids to school and I was like, this is warm air. This is kind of weird. Like what? Like, and yeah, like the car is like rating 17 degrees. I'm like, what is going on that we're getting 17 degrees right now? So it's quite interesting. Those people are, the golf course is open back up so people can golf. Where can you go golfing in December in Canada? Like seriously, it's like unheard of. But yeah, we've had a pretty mild, so they're trying to stay open as long as possible. So it's
That's
just great for them. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Perfect. Well, thanks, Beverly, and everyone who joined us today.
Absolutely.
We will
Have
be
a
back at her in a
wonderful
couple
week.
weeks. You as well. We'll chat
Too.
again soon.
Bye-bye.